Yeah, so very impressive. Get some waving there. Very impressive play. And Chris Andersen, you know, it was fantastic to watch him, especially game 2. Game 1, you know, his opponent didn't get to do much. He comboed off with Elv, probably second turn, second or third turn. You know, comboed off, did his thing and everything. So, game 2, his opponent knows what he's playing against. Says, obviously, Elves just rolls over to a Chalice for 1. Right? Yeah. Obviously.
I mean, what's Elves going to do against a Chalice for 1?
Exactly.
So his opponent casts a Chalice for 1 on turn 2.
Yeah.
On the play.
On the play.
And then on turn 4, he casts another Chalice for 1.
Yeah.
And then on turn 5, he casts a Trinisphere.
So, obviously, when they went to game 3...
Oh, no, there was no game 3. Chris won that game.
Chris won game 2?
Yeah.
What did he do? Cast March of the Machines and gain control of all artifacts and then attack? Is that...
No. He,
Did he, Price of Progress the lands deck with his
No, he just cast a Viridian Shaman 3 times.
The same Viridian Shaman.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Wirewood Symbiote does.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons the Elf deck is so powerful. The interaction between Visionary and Symbiote really lets you outcard just about anybody. And if people are trying to attack you, you can kind of buy yourself as much time as you want because you get infinite blocks with that interaction.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you're, it looks like Chris may have a no-lander, so he's going to have to mulligan.
Yeah, I can't quite see it. I do see the crop rotation. That's about the only card I happen to notice. So, all right.
And Chris is going to go down to 6 cards here.
Not a whole lot of lands in the Elf decks. How many lands actually is Chris running?
Today, Chris is running 17 lands. And that includes 7 fetch lands. So even though he has 17 lands, by the time he's comboing off, he usually only has, you know, maybe 13 to 10 lands remaining in his deck.
Yeah.
Which is nice, you know.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
You know, because if you hit the lands while you're going off, you can't hit too many in a row or you fizzle. Unless, of course, you're able to go over the top and do something like Regal Force, and then you're like all but guaranteed to go off.
Yeah, we didn't see any Regal Forces in his game, or in the match we saw earlier. I think he may have drawn it, but he never had to play it. So. All right. Well, Chris is mulliganing to 5.
Chris going out of 5 cards here. That's kind of rough. The Elf deck does not mulligan well.
Yeah. And Andrew, presumably very happy with his hand. Seems to be in good spirits there, so...
Yeah, I mean, when your opponent's mulliganing to 5 and your first round of top 8,
your smile just keeps getting bigger, right?
Yeah. I don't think you could be anything but happy at that point.
So what do you think has the edge here? Do you think Chris...
I think Chris just destroys Bant decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there are obviously things that can happen that are going to make Chris lose. Mulligan to 5, definitely not.
Could be one of them.
Not going to make this game favor him. I'm going to say that Andrew's probably got game 1 when Chris is going down to 5 cards, but oh, he's going out of 4.
4 cards.
Yeah.
Wow, that's rough.
Yeah.
Well, he fought through Trinisphere and Double Chalice for 1, so. I gotta say, you know, he could do.
And there are still, you know, 2 more games.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't game 3 or anything. This is game 1, and you know, wants to make sure he knows what his opponent's playing too. That's one thing to note. Both players know each other's lists, so some of these mulligans may be with that sort of thing in mind. So it looks like they're playing. And
yeah, they're off to the races.
Chris has a Windswept Heath. Andrew with a Forest and a Noble Hierarch. All right.
Chris passes the turn back. Andrew's going to go ahead and...
Knight of the Reliquary?
That's the Knight of the Reliquary.
Bant's flagship creature, I think.
Chris passing the turn again. Andrew's going to go ahead and Brainstorm here, main phase. Presumably looking for some blue cards to go with the Force of Wills in his hand. And when you have double Force of Will, it's pretty good against this because the Knight is going to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
Attack Chris's life total very quickly, and then you can just kind of force fulfill everything he does, because I mean, playing against the elf deck is confusing, and a lot of the time you don't know which cogs of the engine are the cogs that you need to disrupt.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're just countering everything he does, then and he's only going to 4,
he doesn't
you can
have
usually
all
just
that
apply
much
enough pressure to kill him.
Yeah, he really doesn't have all that much, so countering anything he does is going to set him back even further. So here we go. Is it Kyrian Dryad? Yeah.
Hey, the Quarterfinals Ranger.
Ranger. Not Dryad.
Chris is going to go ahead and cast that. That's actually going to allow him to start trying to cast some Visionaries, which can chain him into some lands, which is what he needs at this point. I mean, being stuck on one land with he has so many 1-drops, and here he is with no 1-drops in one land.
Oh, and a Batter Skull for Andrew. So
Yeah,
Chris now at
down.
11, and
Going to return that to his hand with Quarterfinals Ranger.
yeah. So he taps
Tap it
the
again.
forest, returns it, replays it, taps it again, has 2 mana, plays Elvish Visionary. Does it resolve? Yes. Draw a card. Sees Mirror Entity.
Yep. And
Pass back,
going to pass
and,
the turn back.
11 life. He's in some trouble here. We've got a Swords to Plowshares for the Kyrian Ranger.
That's going to put Chris back up to 12 here. And
Ponder
then
from
he's
Andrew.
going to ponder. And yeah, this game, I mean, Chris Mulligan to 4.
Yeah, really.
We're just watching him get smashed right now.
Not a lot he could have done here. So the Knight.
That's 8 that it's coming in for. Chris is going to go down to 4 here.
The Knight's just a 3/3, right? No Exalted trigger here.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, it was attacking for 4. Now it's
Yeah,
attacking
yeah,
for 3
that
because
makes
no
sense.
Exalted
Okay.
trigger.
So Chris is actually at 5 now.
Yeah.
Chris is going to scoop
yeah.
this one up,
Since they-
and they're off to game 2.
Yeah. He mulligans this game so that he can draw 7.
Yeah, a little awkward too. I mean, Chris's deck actually mulligans significantly less hands than Andrew's does. Chris playing a 1-color deck where all of his lands produce green mana.
And
You
a
know,
lot
and
of
he
his
only
1-drops
really-
produce the 2nd mana that he might even need.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It's extremely rare for him to go that many turns without drawing a 2nd land or an elf to go with it. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, it's time for trivia.
Time for trivia.
You know, we're going to ask you guys a trivia question, and then you can tweet your answers to #SCG Premium, and we're going to choose one of you who had the correct answer, and that person is going to get 3 free months of Star City Games Premium.
Yep.
If you already have premium service, this extra 3 months will just be tacked onto your account. So it's a nice little bonus to get.
Yeah. So you tweet your answer. You don't have to tweet it at SCG Live. You can just include the hashtag, as you see on the bottom of the screen under JVL there, the hashtag SCG Premium. As long as you include that, we'll see it. You don't need to tweet it at SCG Live. So
Yep.
you know, just a heads up there. So I got a question. You got a question?
Sure, you can go ahead.
I'll go with mine. All right. This one's a pretty easy one, I think.
All right.
The answer is readily available if you're resourceful. What's the name of the player that won the Standard Open in Cincinnati this morning?
Ooh, I like that question. Yeah, I mean, if you're on the Star City Games
Easy.
website already, you know, reading some of the great content there
Yeah.
from excellent players like Brian Kibler, who is currently battling in the finals of the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fellow SCG Live commentator.
yes.
Team SCG Live. Sorry, Paulo.
Yeah. I mean, to represent.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. I think I did that wrong, actually. I think I did this instead of this.
I don't know. I think you can do it either way.
Yeah, well,
At
I
least
did
it wasn't like
reverse.
this.
That one's a little
You know,
weird.
that one's
That
just no
just
good.
looks kind of
Yeah.
strange. So it looks like. So yeah, tweet the answer. Name the winner of the StarCityGames.com Open Series Standard portion in Cincinnati for this weekend. This morning, actually. With the hashtag SCG Premium in your tweet, and you will be in the running to win 3 months of free Star City Games Premium access. We'll be giving away 6 months in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we would normally give away a year in
But
the
instead we're
finals.
giving away Gen Con badges.
Gen Con badges.
Those
That's
are really
pretty
hard to
awesome.
acquire.
Jesse's cheering. I think he may actually even even cheat and tweet from like a name that we don't know, and then pick himself as the winner for the Janicon badge.
Virginia will have a problem with that.
So,
you know, even though Chris is down a game, I still like his odds here.
so like it. Well,
I
that's
think
good.
that, I mean, Elvis is just so favored in a
Is he
matchup
just
like
trying to make it
this.
exciting for us? He knows he's on camera. He's wants to give us a little
gotta
drama.
Make everybody
Is that
sweat a
what
little
he's
bit.
doing? I don't
Andrew
know.
Morrow too. I mean, Andrew Morrow.
He's
deck
playing
looks
this
pretty
deck. His
awesome.
deck is good, and it's very.
I mean, he's
very
playing a lot of powerful spells.
Exactly. I mean, it's very
He's got Stoneforge,
similar
V-Click,
to
Neither
Blue White
Valkyrie,
Blade, right? I
Force
mean-
of Will, yes, Swords to Blashers, Brainstorm, Daze, Spell Snare, Sword, Ponder, Batterskull, Jit. Like, he's playing powerful cards. You look at Chris's deck, Chris, not
There's
so
a
many
lot of
powerful
weak cards that work together for powerful interactions.
Yeah.
The problem is if you can't get them together, there are no interactions to be powerful. All right, turn 1 Kyrian Ranger for Chris. It's already started off much better with 3 extra cards than he did last game.
Yeah, and I mean, that Ancestral Visions that came off Suspend on turn 1 for him, working
Yeah.
out pretty well. And
So-
Andrew Morrow again with the turn 1 Noble Hierarch. And that lets his deck, accelerate very well. Turn 2 Knight or turn 2 V-Click is really good. V-Click is ideal against Chris's deck. But only if Andrew is used to playing against elves and knows what he should be taking. I've played elves and had people V-click me and take a card out of my hand only to have me draw a card that actually made me kill them.
Yeah. All right, so taps a forest. And I believe Brian Kibler just won the Pro Tour. Wow, Chris Andersen taps a forest and Brian Kibler wins the Pro Tour. That kid is really good. That was a really good spell. Oh, I think it was actually unrelated, but well, congratulations quickly to Brian Kibler for winning Pro Tour Honolulu.
How sick.
Yeah. So Chris has a Nettle Sentinel.
Yeah, and a Birchlore Ranger.
And then a Gaia's Cradle, which he taps, has Birchlore Ranger. Now an Elvish Visionary, untaps a Nettle Sentinel. Chris is about to go off.
I don't think he has a glimpse, so he can't quite go off.
Fair enough. He's kind of exploding under the table, not actually going off. Yes.
And an important thing when you're playing this Elves deck is that, in a lot of ways, you want to slow roll some of the cards in your hand so that you can go off even if you've already been forced to play a bunch of elves onto the table.
Right.
And Chris knows for a fact that his opponent has nothing in the way of board sweepers, and I think his plan here is to simply he just passes the turn. And that's a fine play. I mean, if Chris has access to a Green Sun Zenith, or a Court of Calling, or a Wirewood Symbiote,
Yeah.
or a Glimpse of Nature, obviously, he can start to do some really, really crazy things. Meanwhile, Andrew has 1 land and a Noble Hierarch in play.
Yeah. And finally a second land.
Yeah.
All
On
right,
turn
so-
2, though, so he's not
Exactly.
behind.
He's good. It was just finally
Yes.
was sort of
Chris kind of had a bigger turn, too.
sarcastic finally there. So Umazawa's Jite seems very, very good against Chris's deck.
Yeah,
Probably better than a Chalice on 1.
probably. I mean, a Chalice on 1, you can kind of just sit around and wait to deal with it.
Yeah.
Whereas a Jit, he can play it, equip
Immediate
it,
problem.
and start fighting right away. I mean, what Chris needs to do here is Chris needs to hope that Andrew wouldn't have enough mana to, or he has the Hierarch, so he will.
Yeah.
He needs to hope that Andrew doesn't have a Swords to Plowshares if he's not going to try to go off immediately. And then he can use a card like Green Sun Zenith to search for a Wirewood Symbiote. And that Wirewood Symbiote will allow him to block basically indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without actually the creature dealing combat damage.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jite never gets counters on it. So
All right.
it looks like that may be what he's working on here. All right, so it was a Green Sun Zenith for 1, which of course costs 2. And played right into a spell snare there.
Chris probably could have cast that for 3.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he realizes that he did something wrong there.
And he plays his Wooded Foothills, and I believe he may be out of cards. Yeah, I think he's out of cards here. So
he's going to attack for 2 with the Nettle Sentinel here.
Yeah. Andrew just wants to try to understand all the ridiculous interactions that can happen on the other side of the table.
And now, I mean, if he has the JIT, here it comes.
All right, equips to Stoneforge Mystic, Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep, and Chris playing really well here. Plays that fetch land, fetches up a Dryad Arbor, and then blocks the Stoneforge Mystic and returns it to his hand with the Quirion Ranger.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, now that's like pretty advanced play. Like Chris not worried at all about that JIT. Here we are watching and like, oh my god, like how's he gonna deal with a JIT with counters?
He knows exactly what he's gonna do.
Yeah, he's like, oh, JIT with counters? Whatever, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean it's really impressive. Yeah, he knows his deck, he knows the interactions, he knows the kind of cards he's going to be playing against and the kind of cards people are going to play against him, and he sets himself up really well. And in the meantime, is that just a large attack? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it's just a big attack there.
Yeah, I mean he's got 1 card in hand. Didn't quite catch what it was.
I think
we're
it's
going to find
Priest.
out. No, it's a Priest of Titania, which untaps the Nettle Sentinel, which he can get some mana right now, but he doesn't really need to. Nothing to cast. So here he can do the same trick, presuming Andrew has no answer for the Dryad Arbor.
And it looks like Andrew might have Swords to Plowshares, so
and that's gonna be rough because that's gonna get some counters on the JIT, and
yeah, that's gonna be really rough.
All right, so he goes to swords the Quirion Ranger.
Yeah, and
not
Chris is not going to be in a good spot after that happens. Chris has a very small window here to draw out of this. And perhaps he should not have sideboarded in these chokes. They're somewhat situational. So I think you kind of just take 2 here and let him get 2 JIT counters. It's painful, but... Ooh, is he going to double block? I don't know if... Double blocking allows him to kill your Nettle Sentinel and still kill 2 guys, so seems pretty rough actually.
Yeah. Kills a priest, kills a visionary. Umezawa's Jite is lethal to elves.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Chris doesn't have another game to spare here. So he's gonna really need some help off the top of his deck. I mean, just drawing a Viridian Shaman here would be splendid for Chris if he wants to get out of this. In the meantime, Knight of the Reliquary has been added to Andrew's side of the board there, and that Knight is, let's see, C1. Oh well. Andrew's very quick with his with his library.
Yes.
Didn't quite catch. I saw 1 fetch land. I believe there's more than that. Can we get the power toughness on the Knight?
5/5.
5/5 Knight. Jesse knows.
All right, so this Knight is now a 5/5, and I mean the JIT is the real issue for Chris at this point. Chris sexes to 5 mana, so he could Green Sun properly, but
yeah, that's really.
And again, Chris, playing so well here, but still, making a bit of a mistake by
the 2 casting cost, or playing the Zenith for 2, I think was the
that was the big problem.
He had mana to spare. He did not need to run himself right into a spell snare, and I think he just wasn't considering that.
Yeah, and he knew it was in his opponent's deck too.
Yeah,
it's
one of those oops kind of things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Chris no longer has a board now.
Knight picks up Jite, and Jite destroys the elves. Wasteland destroys the Dryad Arbor, and Jite is down to. I'm sorry, Chris. Just called Chris Jite. Chris is down to.
Chris down to nothing but lands.
Yeah, and the Gaia's Cradle does nothing. He can't even cast a Viridian Shaman off the top. Second night from Andrew.
Yep, and
Pass
this
the
is
turn.
just going to be the last nail in the coffin for Chris. And Chris is going to pack it in.
Wow, that's
Shake Andrew
really...
Morrow's hand.
Well, Andrew Morrow on to the semifinals. I mean...
Made quick work of his Elves opponent. And, I mean, that's a pretty good matchup for Chris.